Welcome to How to Write Good, the writing podcast that is not about how to write. My name is Daniel Poppy, your host. You can find out more about me at danielpoppy.com. If you haven't already, please follow How to Write Good on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you would like to stay up to date with both How to Write Good and everything I am working on, please sign up for my email list. You can find that at my website as well. Again, that's danielpoppy.com. All right, besides all that, you can also check out my serialized novel on my website. You can also check it out on its own podcast. It is called One Last Toast for Ebenezer Fleet. The next episode is coming out soon. It's coming out in 2 weeks. It comes out on a Sunday. It's not next Sunday, but the Sunday after. So check that out as well. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to get more into the story and get more stuff happening, but you have to actually, a story only can go at a certain pace before everything picks up really quickly. And I would say stuff is moving fairly quickly now. This week we have three guests, and they are actually a band. So the guests are a Wisconsin band called the Band Eden. The Band Eden, welcome to How to Write Good.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you.
So we've got Louis, Jacob, and Tyler. I can't remember your last names. I'm not going to say what those are, unless you want to.
It's okay. They're not important.
Yeah.
So 7,000 Apart actually directed me to you. And one thing, so I always usually check out how bands sound, and I typically don't invite a band on unless I like how they sound. At least a little bit, and I have a fairly eclectic musical taste because everybody does, but what I got off of your band is that you sounded like an early 2000s like alternative rock band.
Cool. Yeah, we get that a lot.
That's
pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we just say we don't know. It just comes out that way.
It just comes out that way?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering if that was conscious or that just kind of happened that way.
Well, we all grew up in that time, so it's kind of the sound of our childhood.
So how old are you guys? Get a little personal here.
I'm 22.
I'm 26.
Okay.
And I'm 24.
Okay. So who's 26 again? I'm sorry. It was
Louis.
Louis.
Louis 26.
Louis is about my age.
He's the old man of the band.
Yes.
He's not that old.
Wow, says you.
I'm a little older than him. So Louis, you are superior. Thanks for coming on.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll direct all my questions to you.
Good, as you should.
But yeah, I in the past I did kind of band interviews a little different. Kind of asked them about what they did and like their process of becoming a band. But I kind of want to do this differently because you guys there's more of you, and the most I've had on for like bands are like one or two. So I've just been kind of thinking about in my own life, different things that have impacted, because I do a lot of writing. Podcast is called How to Write Good. But one question that I've been thinking about is kind of like the biggest impacts on me in terms of why I do what I do or what pushes me to do what I do. So I kind of have this philosophy that if you are interested in doing something creative, you should just go out and do something creative. And I guess I have certain things. I think that my mom was a big influence on me in that because she's always like, oh, you like writing. Why don't you do that? Why don't you write a book and different things like that? And then there's other things in my life too that are actually counterintuitive. For example, I'm from a big family, and I've got a brother who's 9 years older than me and another one who's 2 years older than me. And my brother is essentially, in my family, how it worked is when you had an idea, everybody who was older than you was like, oh, that idea is stupid. So I kind of grew a thick skin, and how I function to a certain degree is like people are like, oh, you can't do that. So I'm like, all right, you say I can't do that, I'm going to do that. So So when you look at, maybe this is out of the blue, when you look at why you started a band, because it's not a normal thing, what are your personal reasons? What are your reasons as a band? Or like, what are the biggest impacts on you for starting a band and actually continuing it or trying to do something with that?
Jake, you want to take that one? Because you kind of are you're technically the father of the band, so to speak.
Well, yeah, the youngest one. I guess
the youngest one is the father.
Like these guys weren't in the band when we first started. It was about like a year, maybe a year and a half before they joined. It was me and my friend Peter. It was really off of a whim. We just got wind of a statewide battle of the bands for high school kids, and we just kind of entered that. And we made it into past the preliminaries, and then the battle of the bands got snowed out, and then they just judged off recordings. We didn't win. And then the next year we came back and made it to the finals because we actually got to play a show. And then I came back and we did well enough in that, so they gave us a show at the State Fair and at Summerfest. And I did Summerfest with just me and my friend. And there was just two of us on this massive stage at Summerfest. And I'm like, we need more guys. So I just brought these guys on. But it was for me, it was more off of a whim. I'm like, we're both pretty good at this, and we play well together. Might as well just have fun.
So you're essentially thinking like, okay, this looks fun. This is an opportunity. Why not just do it out of the blue?
Pretty much, yeah.
Louis and Tyler, why did you end up joining the band?
Well, for
Do you
me,
want to go first? There we go.
yeah. I was when I was in high school, I was in like a lot of musical stuff, and then when I went off to university, not so much like music involvement. And then Jacob actually reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, we're looking to add people to the band, and music has been a big part of my life, as it is all of us." And I absolutely I was really excited about getting involved with it, and I've known Jake for a number of years beforehand, and so I knew he was good, and I knew that we'd have good chemistry. So yeah, that's why I joined in.
Tyler?
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of interesting because I remember when Jake had contacted me, I was in college, kind of just finishing up, and it was just like, well, I need something to do anyway. But I just kind of saw it as an opportunity for me to actually use the skills that I'd been teaching myself because, it's good to be okay at things and it's good to be good at things, obviously. But for me, if I couldn't use it for anything, it was kind of like a lost cause. So, spending, years and years and years behind a drum kit without actually using it just seemed kind of like a waste. So, it was an opportunity, and I knew that no matter what was going to happen, it was going to be a good time. So I just was like, yeah, let's do it. And then, and I know Jake didn't really mention this, but with just the two of them, it was more of an acoustic duo, and that once you had a drummer, things tend to change. So.
What's the story behind your band name, Jacob? Father Jacob, I'm gonna refer to you as.
We named it Eden because of our smooth acoustic tone. It doesn't really fit anymore.
I don't understand how that's connected to Eden, though.
Yeah, well, the way that Eden is more pictured as more like serenity. There's not a lot of chaos, and assume that there's probably no awful, horrible, loud noises. Yeah.
So now there is only chaos.
There's mostly chaos.
There's mostly chaos. You're just like we
it's
hope
like a
that
controlled
it sounds
explosion.
like music. We hope it sounds like music, but we really don't know all the time. We're not sure.
It's just loud.
Okay. Well, let's change speeds a little bit. Totally not related to band stuff, but all of you are in your 20s. Who's the youngest one again?
That's me.
Like, how old are you again?
22.
Oh, you're only 22. All right, so we'll have to switch this up a little bit. So for Louis and Tyler, you can think about this. So if you, and this can be anything, actually. It doesn't have to be even related to creative stuff. If you were to give advice for Louis and Tyler to your 15-year-old self, what would it be? Jacob, if you had to give advice to your 10-year-old self, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jacob. Father Jacob. I need to use your correct title. Okay. Louis, do you have any idea? Does anybody have any ideas off the bat first that they want to go?
I do. The very first thing I'd be is invest in Bitcoin.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
No, you can't do... Okay. All right. You can bring this in. Any life advice? Let's do any life advice. I'll
there we
clarify that. I'm sorry.
I know for me it would be to it's kind of like the stereotypical, just just accept who you are, because when I was 15 I was a bit of a shy introvert, and so I kind of like kept to myself, but as you get older, you learn to accept who you are, and people will accept you anyway. So yeah, like that's what I would just like accept who you are. It's really okay.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a 15-year-old issue too.
Yep.
I feel like I get better at stuff. Like, for example, for me, I've been writing since forever almost. And when I was in high school, I wouldn't show anybody anything. But the older I get, the more I'm just like, screw it, I don't care anymore. And if somebody was like, hey, like, what should I do for writing? Like, if some kid who's 15 who walked up to me, they're like, what should I do with writing? The best thing I could do? I'd be like, oh, publish as soon as possible. Because then you have stuff out there that people are like, then you feel obligated to make more stuff. And you're like, you get over that initial hump of writing a book. Then you're like, oh, I wrote a book. It doesn't really matter if I write others. Like, I wrote one book, I can write however many more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll wait for Father Jacob. Tyler, do you have any advice you'd give your 15-year-old self?
Yeah, and it kind of sounds kind of odd, but it would probably be stop worrying about the world, because it's not going to give you anything. When I was 15, I was so worried about what people thought or what my job was going to be, and it sounds dumb, but I was even thinking like, oh, maybe I can retire at like 60 or 55. That'd be cool. And for me to be thinking that way was I think odd overall. But just to kind of tell myself like the world that you see isn't going to give you anything. You have to work for it and you have to have it. But most importantly, let there be a passion there as well that you work off of. Because I think a lot of times, even looking back, there were things that I pushed for, and I was like, oh, I want to do this, I want to be really good at it, but there was no passion there.
Yeah.
And when there's no passion, you're not going to be as creative. You're not going to enjoy what you do. And honestly, like around, let's see here, 15, what was I doing? I mean, I discovered that girls didn't have cooties at 15.
It was that late?
So.
Took you to 15?
Wow.
I mean, I live in Brillion. It's a small town.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just being so focused on other things and just not really, kind of ignoring my passions.
So where it's Brillion? Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
Now that people know exactly who you are, because there's only 7 people in the town. But
pretty much, yeah. There's
people can find it on Facebook anyways.
Here in Brillion, there's 3 forms of communication: television, telephone, and tell somebody else.
Yeah. So I grew up in small towns too, Tyler, and I think that for me, like, do you notice, Jacob, we'll put a hold on you answering that question. All 3 of you can answer this one though. Do you think that there's a lot of, I think that when you are in a small town or more of a rural area, they don't really, it seems to me that they don't really value art as much or creativity as much.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true of Brillion, but I got, to be honest, I got stupid lucky in high school to have a really encouraging band teacher, because I refused to take choir because I didn't get along with the teacher at all. But I got really lucky to be encouraged, and he's actually the reason why I play drums now, because he'd let me play the school kit like for an hour every study hall, and I wasn't very good. So, but for him just to encourage that was so different, and I think that's part of the reason why I am the way I am now. But no, I would agree. I think art, even whether it be painting, sculpting, writing, poetry or writing music, is something that is, at least in my high school, was never something that was encouraged. It was something that's like, oh, cool, you write songs, but like, are you going to work at Aaron's or not? Which is the big plant. Yeah. That was really the bigger question, which never made sense to me.
Yeah, there's always like this thing where people are like, oh yeah, that's cool that you, it's not that people say it explicitly, but it's like, that's cool that you do that. But like, what are you going to do for your life? It's like, well, what? Yeah. It'd be cool to do this for my life. A lot of people do. But what I've seen too, or more recently, it's like, you have these people who are like, oh, like, writing's not worthwhile, music's not worthwhile. And then they go and they watch TV or they like listen to music. It's like, you're kind of a hypocrite, aren't you?
Yeah.
Father Jacob, what advice would you give to your 10-year-old self? You can 15 too if you really want to. But.
Well, if I were like 12, I'd probably just tell myself to not be so stubborn about things. I remember my sister brought this up to me the other day. Like when I was 12 years old, I started playing drums. I was a drummer back then. And I specifically told her, I am never going to play guitar. I don't want to. And 4 years later, I picked that up, and I haven't really played drums since. I'm like, what would I have been like if I would have actually just listened to that advice to pick that up 4 years earlier? Where would I be at now?
So this is one thing I like to ask the guests on the show, and it generally produces a lot of conversation. But what do you guys think what do you think the most important thing with creativity is? Like, to be creative, what do you think the most important thing is? Or to be productive as a creative person?
Honestly, for me, it's probably the looking at other people's creativity of sorts. Like when I'm sitting around and I'm listening to like new music or even music that I've listened to before, you take time, you listen to what others have like written and like are playing, and then you're able to like, hey, I really like that, and then you can kind of adapt it into your own style and like just get a broader range of like stuff that you can use, and you can use bits and pieces of this and that and move forward and be creative with it. I feel like that's probably, for me, what is the most important thing with creativity.
Well, for me, I guess the best way would be is just find what your motivation was. Because my motivation, at least early on, was competitiveness. Because my best friend was also a musician, and I had to be better than him at a lot of things. And so I started playing guitar shortly after he played, and I started singing after he left, and started writing songs after he left. And I think that was what pushed me a lot of the time. It's just finding somebody else to compare myself to, and then trying to grow past them.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense now, Jake. But like for me, like when it comes to creativity, for me, I think it's besides passion, because that's a huge part, but just having a database of things that you can pull from. And just to like speak a little bit more towards the drummer, because that's what I do. It's drums is such an influence type instrument. We don't commonly think of it as an instrument. We just think of it as percussion. It's loud and bangy and whatever, which it is. But I find that like even when we're writing things for the band and when we're rehearsing, the fills and just the different things come from so many different genres. If you ever come and see a live show, hashtag shameless plug. But if you ever come see a live show, I'm doing different things from multiple different genres. It's not like, and that's kind of the beauty too of our genre is, it does come from so many different styles of music. People who liked rock but wanted it heavier eventually formed into heavy alternative or hard alternative. People who liked screamo but didn't like it in their face all the time, toned back to where we're at. So for me, besides passion, it's just having a knowledge base of all these different things that you can pull from to make your style unique, and honestly just like heading toward being unique, because everyone has, we're all unique already, which is amazing. But then when you bring it into a creative aspect with art or with music, we all can make that unique style and that unique sound that only suits to us, which I think is incredible. So,
do you have a favorite drummer, Tyler?
Oh man. I don't have an actual favorite, somebody who takes the number one list. But right now, the heavy influencers are Jojo Mayer. He's been huge recently. And then I don't know his name, and I feel bad. And if you have any drummers that listen who are diehard drummers, they're going to put me on a stake. about this, but whoever is drumming for Snarky Puppy right now is just amazing. You know, just what he can do and what sounds he can get out of his kit.
What was for you guys? What was the point where you're like, how would I say this? The point where you went from not doing something creative to, or like, so I guess it's music for you guys. What's the point in your lives where, if you can point to it, where you went from, oh, I don't do music, like it's not a daily part of my life, or a week, it's not a habitual part of my life, to a time when it was? Like, do any of you know a point where that happened?
Mine was probably when I got my first audio interface, and I was able to like record my ideas right away. It just became another hobby that was in addition to music, was, you know, creating music.
I think it was probably a year into Eden, actually. We're starting to really kind of like jive together. We'd all kind of like known each other for a while, but we were starting to really kind of like really get into it, and like I just was, you know, it became less of like I'm just doing it now, to like it's just a part of my life. It's something I'm going to be doing, basically forever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
For me, it was kind of like, it was weird. It didn't kind of come all at once, but like probably the second or third time, setting up at Jake's parents' house in their garage with my piece of junk drum kit.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the shiny metal one. But setting that up, and I remember one night we actually didn't set up in the garage. We set up just outside of the garage for whatever reason, and it was like this is gonna sound like really weird and nostalgic, but just like literally being outside. It was like 11 o'clock at night, I feel like, and we're just playing our songs, and like, I think we had just there was one that we wrote, and I remember yeah, that was the one where the car drove by during our
it was like in the perfect time.
Yeah,
recorded it,
and it was like, I just remember like from that night on, I just remember going like, oh man, I want to do this for the rest of my life, and it was a pivotal moment where it's like, this is what I do now. And then the second moment that kind of put a nail in it was when we played Cup of Joy, and I'm trying to remember who we opened for, but that's irrelevant. I think it was Ilya. Yeah. So when we opened for them, just honestly like falling in love with, like, I'm a musician, this is what I do, and I don't want to stop doing this. Yeah,
it's kind of a weird. It's a different life choice. Deciding to, it's just different than most people. I don't know if most people get it when they first run into it.
If you decide to be a musician, just kind of chooses for you.
You think so?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, it's a lot of work to actually break into the industry, right?
Yeah, getting into the industry is. Well, it's easier now than it has been ever before, just because of all the platforms we have.
Like with the internet and stuff?
Yeah, with the internet, and with like back in the day, like recording stuff was so expensive, so they had to get contracts with record companies. But now everything's so cheap, you could go out and buy like a $60 audio interface and a $40 microphone and produce an album, and then release it everywhere.
That is really wild that they're able to do that. So it's easier, but it's still really hard. But at the same time, like, so you guys, I'm assuming, have day jobs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So right now what you're doing is you're doing your day job, and you're like, okay, we're going to keep on moving forward. You're moving forward toward being able to make music full time. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But like, I don't know, for me, like, there's a lot of times where I'm just like, okay, because I still have a day job, and there's a lot of days where I'm just like, should I keep on doing this? Like, I've already decided in my mind to do it, but to write. But at the same time, there's days where I'm like, oh man, this is such hard work, and you've got to recommit yourself to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mean, I know, and that's just kind of the thing, when you take, for example, in a band, you're taking, 3 people and you're going from different life experiences and different current life, as far as jobs and stuff. And that's where the hard part comes in. Most bands, just to kind of give you a quick stat, most bands, when they start to when they get some serious traction where they can kind of start considering leaving their day jobs is around the 5-year mark. Mm-hmm. So from the birth of the band to the 5-year mark is the most pivotal moment. Now, I will say this: we've gotten quite lucky with just knowing people and asking the right questions and getting the right things out at the right time, doing the right promotions to kind of push that a little bit further. But and I guarantee every single one of us in the band, and I know I'm kind of speaking on behalf of them, I would say we've all had times where we've thought, maybe this just isn't worth it, or maybe this isn't worth the time, or it's not worth the drive. But that's when, yet again, we just got to kind of knuckle down and look at why we started and realize, hey, there's something bigger happening. And even what we talk about in our songs, to have a platform to say what we say is incredible, let alone, so our show might only have 20 people, but it might have 500, but we're still going to play with the same passion, no matter what. And that's kind of what we got to stick to.
So it's what year are you at right now for the band?
Is it year 3?
I think it's
it's been year 3 for you guys.
Yeah.
Or no, it'll be year 3 in summer. Well, year 4 in summer. So yeah, about 3.5 right now for them.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys
went
know
by quick, didn't it?
Do you guys know the the 1,000 true fans thing?
What?
Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So there's this idea, and I think so. I don't know how you approach marketing or getting the word out, whatever you want to call it. But there's this idea with if you're someone you're an entrepreneur. Because what I've realized as a writer is you also have to be an entrepreneur on top of doing it if you want to do it by yourself. It's just part of the game. And one of the things that I ran into is most people think when you're a writer or you're a musician or whatever creative thing you do, or even if you don't do something creative, they think, oh, you have to make it really big. That's like the goal. You have to, millions and millions of people read your books, whatever. But more recently I ran into this thing, and I've seen it in the past too, where it's not the goal isn't everybody in the country listening to your stuff. The goal is like 1,000 people who really love your stuff. And then you essentially work for those 1,000 people who really love your stuff, and you're putting stuff out for them, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy any album you put out. I'll buy your merch and all those different things like that. And then those 1,000 people like you so much, they spread the word about you, and it's kind of like this domino effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually makes 100% sense.
I think it's encouraging.
Yeah, it is, because at that point, it's not like you're like, quick, reach 2.5 million people and you might get a paycheck,
Yeah.
No, I like that.
Yeah, I think it's just something good to know. For me, like, I always think, oh, like, I've got to get this many people and whatever. Like, I've got to get millions and millions of people buying a book for however much. And when it's really like, no, you just, your goal right now is 1,000 people. And if you hit that 1,000 people mark, then you can, 1,000 people who really like your stuff, if you hit that mark, then you can go and you can do something else with it. Mm-hmm. But I'll just pass it on to you guys, and you can do what you want with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like it.
Are there any big things coming up for you guys? Any shows or anything like that?
It would be Tyler's domain.
Yeah, Tyler, this is you, buddy.
Well, as of right now, and I can't confirm them because I haven't signed paperwork. But as of right now, I mean, our summer's looking pretty good. We've got a couple nice shows coming up. Follow our Facebook for more. No. But it is, I don't know. We've got some, I think we've got some great plans coming up. We'll be seeing each other more and more, which means we can get more done, and hopefully we'll be, I don't know. My hope is that when we get together next, we can probably write a new song. just because that would be nice to do. But yeah, we got some good summer shows lined up. I just have to sign the paperwork, so I don't want to build up too much hope, and then all of them go to Facebook and see an apology post.
I set you up for a plug and you didn't take it. I mean, come on.
It's because I couldn't.
You
I couldn't.
You have to be.
Well, we should
prepared.
have another single coming out probably within the next month and a half.
Nice.
We get everything done next weekend when they come recording.
Oh, it's got to get done. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I'm excited.
How is the creative process with 3 people? How does that work?
Well, for us, I kind of just write like a song, or at least most of a song, and then I'll send it to them about a week before practice or something, and then I just expect them to know it, and then just add in because we all have different things. Because I can play bass and drums, but I'm not as good at those things as they are. So when I do record it, I record like to the best of my ability on those things, expecting them to add their flair to it that I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of like, you are the heart of the band.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just like he denies it, but he is.
Well, it's hard to say heart of the band because like
You're the heart of the band.
On stage, the heart of the band is like the drummer with a kick drum and the bass. Like, but in the creative process, it's whoever's writing them.
Yeah, the heart of the band is the person behind all the creative decisions, in my opinion. I don't know. You can disagree with that if you want to.
I'm Father Jacob and the heart of the band. I'm just getting all these titles.
Father Jacob Hart, please bestow upon us your glory.
Let's stay out of the sacrilegious territory there. So you guys, I can't remember if you said this. You knew each other before you all became part of the band, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know each other well, or was it kind of out of the blue?
I knew him
Oh
pretty
man!
well.
By the way, this is probably one of my favorite questions
It's my favorite story.
because Jake tells it so well.
All right, go ahead.
I'm not done with it.
Who tells the story?
Please, Jake does.
All right, Father Jacob,
I had
please tell the story.
I had no part in it. They just showed up at my doorstep one day.
Tell the story, please. Now we have to. I'm sorry. Now you have to tell the story. It's already been...
Well, Louis made a mistake when he was about 14, 15 years old. And that was dating my sister. And then, like, 6 or 7 years later, Tyler made a similar mistake, which was dating my sister.
Same sister?
Same sister. So I didn't have to look far. They came home for a holiday one time, and then they stayed.
Was it awkward?
No. I always loved all of them.
I was going to say not for him.
So they weren't dating
It
your
wasn't
sister
awkward
at
for
the-
me. My sister still hates it. She's like, it's not Tyler's band. Yeah. She has nothing wrong with Louis, but Tyler. You know.
Can you explain? You need to explain that if you're willing to.
Oh man!
Can you explain the animosity?
Of her not like
Such a good word.
She just didn't. She didn't like that I was bringing her leftovers in.
Good to know. So, why does she not have trouble with Louis?
Oh, because
Because
Louis
you can't not love Louis.
I don't know. He left her in the woods.
It did.
The sad part was I remember hearing that story and not knowing it was you.
Oh, that's really funny.
And she's like, yeah, he did that, but it's whatever now.
Does Jacob's sister not like you at all, Tyler? Or is it
No, it's like a love-hate thing.
It's a bit weird.
it sounds a bit weird.
I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with my current status as a human. I don't know.
Whatever that means,
no.
but okay, let's move on.
He married her best friend.
Yeah. No, I think that honestly it is we're fine. It's not terrible.
No, it's not.
No, it's gotten a lot better through the years, but most things do.
So what's like the long-term future? What are you expecting in the next few years for the band and stuff like that?
Well, I'd like to have, like, in like a 3-year window, I'd like to have at least 3 more albums out.
How many do you have out right now?
We have 1 full album and then an EP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which are drastically different.
Yes. I know within the next couple of years, as Tyler said earlier, we're fortunate enough to know quite a number of people and have a lot of connections. So I know we're hoping to try to set up some sort of a tour, or kind of either whether it be around the area or like a national tour. That's something that I think we've been talking about.
So, are all of you married?
No.
No.
Just Tyler.
Just
Tyler.
So I kind of feel bad for musicians, and I think it's something that I never want to do because if you want to, it seems like if you want to make it big, whatever you want to call it, if you want to do well as a musician, it seems like you need to tour to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it kind of sounds like it sucks.
It definitely can. It definitely can suck. I've got plenty of friends who tour a lot, and one of my buddies, and I'll plug them because they're a great group of guys. A band called Set for the Fall. Just great guys, but they're touring as much as they can because they know that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
And they were up here for a show, and I was talking to the front guy, and we were just kind of talking back and forth. And he's like, "Yeah, man, touring is great, and playing music is my passion, and I love it, and I love what I get to do, But every night, he Skypes his wife and daughter, and tells him, kind of about his day, and he's like, that gets hard after a while.
Yeah, I bet. Oh.
He's like, there's only so much Skype that you can do before you just straight out just are heartbroken that you can't be there, to say goodnight to your wife or even tucking your daughter into bed. But he makes it work. They make it work because they kind of have that understanding. And I know, like for us, with me being married and just kind of how our lives are set, to pack up and go on tour is definitely hard. It's definitely a leap of faith even to just kind of go, yeah, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. And honestly, I'm just blessed that me and my wife have had that conversation of, let's say a spot opens up on a national tour, we're not headlining, but they're going to pay for pretty much everything and we'll get something out of it. She's told me, go do it, pursue your passion because, you only live for so long.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really glad that we've had that conversation and all that's lined up. And, the other thing is too, is, and I think we've talked about it too before is, it's nice to have kind of someone to come along as well on the tour. And I've heard this from other people too, to kind of help everything be level because, if all three of us are hanging out together all the time, as much as we are good friends, you'll get on your nerves eventually. So you kind of need that other person to kind of step in and be a peacemaker or even just be someone that they can talk to, that's outside of the situation, which is always good. And, plus, she's offered to cook, so that's huge.
I'm sorry, that the last part, that'll make it. That'll make it. Anything about touring, Jacob and Louie? Anything?
No, I definitely, as much as I would love to tour, I understand that, like, making sure ends meet while you're touring is, something that's going to be tough, because you can't get paid in exposure, as that joke was made earlier, but, like, at the same time, it's like, exposure is still really important.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to, it's always going to be that fine line of, like, especially earlier on, you're getting paid like just enough just to make it by, and that'll add to that stress. But at the same time, like Tyler said, you only live for so long, and this is something that we're all, music is something that we're passionate about, and you have to be willing to take some risks and to be able to do it. So that's something that's always on my mind, is like, where's that balance going to be?
So, like, one thing I had to go through with writing, for me, it's kind of justifying doing it. Like, I think it's easier to justify being a writer than justify being a musician personally, because there's less sacrifice that goes into it. Because I don't have to, I can stay at home and just bury myself in a hole and write, you know. How do you justify, like, what's your justification behind becoming musicians, actually pursuing, like, trying to make it, like, okay, let me rephrase that. I think you're actually going to make it work. I think you're going to make it work because you're dedicated to doing it. All three of you are willing to say, okay, we are dedicated to do, we are committing ourselves to this band. We're making time to do it. We're making time to record stuff. We're making time to get stuff out. We're willing to go and play at different places so we get more exposure, even if that's all we get paid in. But, like, what's your justification behind being in a band? Because for me, just liking something or being passionate about something has never been, like, it's never been good enough, I guess. And I've always been like, okay, unless I have a good reason to do this, I'm not gonna make this like something I'm trying to do full time.
Mm-hmm. Well, from my end, it's almost more from your perspective, where it's writing, where you can just bury yourself in a hole, because I can, you know, write all the music and produce it from inside my hole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I'm writing a solo EP right now out of some of my quieter stuff that I can't do with Eden, and I'm like, my justification for that is, like, if I release this and it sells as well as the last one, I'm like, that's gonna pay for my groceries for every month for the rest of my life. I'm like,
nice.
So that's kind of for mine. Like, going out to do the shows and stuff is, like, I don't expect any money from the shows, just because, like, off of the CD sales online alone, we don't really need a lot of money from the shows, so it's more for fun from my perspective, and I just love it's just fun. That's really my justification for going out and playing. Yeah,
but from that perspective, or where you're going, like, you're not, because you're just doing shows around Wisconsin right now, right?
Wisconsin, we did one in Michigan last year.
Okay.
Like, we'll go pretty much anywhere.
Okay. But is it like a huge time commitment with those right now?
Well, not for. I'm lucky enough to not be. I'm like self-employed, so I don't have a lot of problems like planning it into my schedule. With the other guys, where they have more regular day jobs, I could see it'd be more difficult.
Louis and Tyler, so what's, like, your justification behind being a musician or trying to do it full time?
For me, it's like the songs that we write. There are there's some, like, uplifting. They're uplifting and encouraging songs. Plus, there's some songs that really make you, like, think. Like, you don't just want to be one of, you know, just, you know, it's okay to be different. You want to be different. You want to go against the grain of, like, of kind of just what society normal is. You know, and there's a bit of that, and I feel like it's bigger than myself. The songs that we write, the songs that we sing, the songs that we play, it's bigger than myself, and that's why, like Tyler said earlier, like, you know, it doesn't matter if we have a group of 20 people or a group of, you know, a couple hundred people or whatever it'll be. We still play with the same passion as we would, because it's not just for me. You know, I mean, granted, I still love it, and I mean, same with Jacob. I have a blast doing it, being able to play music and you know, just, you know, have fun on stage with the guys is an incredible thing. But I mean, there are people who, you know, need to hear the music. We've had quite a number of people come up and talk to us after our shows about, like, a certain song and things like that. And so I know that it is bigger than us, and so that's another that's a justification for me. Is like, it's not just for me; it's other people. It helps them.
Yeah, it's mind blowing from the writer's perspective too, because like, I write the lyrics and stuff expecting no one to ever hear it. And I'm like, and then when people come back and they actually listen to it and they actually, you know, it hit them home. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of the same as Louis is, you know, lives are so affected by music. Music is something where, you know, if someone plays a beautiful sonata, you know, whether you speak English or French or you're from China or, you know, you've never heard a flute or a violin in your entire life, it still conveys emotion, and it's something that people like. It's very easy, and I'm sure you've realized this as well, where it's really easy for your emotions to kind of take over when listening to music. And so, for us, for the live shows, I love, going and talking to people afterward, and them asking, well, what does that lyric mean? Or, what were you guys trying to get at? And just being able to convey that message, because our songs do convey a lot of different messages. We talk about hope in one of our songs, but non-conformity. Don't just be like everybody else. Don't be, you're a person, you're unique, so be unique. Have your own thoughts, feel your own feelings. And even through all of that too, just seeing people's, obviously we haven't had a night and day, oh, my life changed because I listened to this song. But I've had people who come up to me personally, because I know I'm going to go, hey, we'd love for you to check out our music and tell me what you think. Just come back and go, man, that song Break Me Down is, first off, I always hear that, man, that song Break Me Down is so cool. It's so fun to listen to. But then, later hearing how certain lyrics stick out, and seeing that with music being able to impact people's lives and have them essentially either feel lifted up or challenged to think about how they live is very important to me, and I think that justifies for it right there. I mean, if you could say I could live my whole life playing music that would change people's lives, that would be enough.
All right, so this is my final question, because I don't want to take too much of your time. But it's a little different, and it might be a little bit difficult to answer. So if you don't have a specific answer right now, or you just can't think, that's all right. What do you think? Because I don't even know the answer to this myself. I'm still thinking it over. What do you think the purpose of art, and classify that as music, any type of writing, any type of visual art, like traditional art? What's the purpose of art in either, you could say, society, or just in the in humanity in general? Let's get really, really philosophical about this.
Well, I think one reason is it's just a healthy way of displaying negative emotion in a lot of cases. And a lot of people release a lot of pain onto the page and into their music, and having a form to, like, a healthy way to do that, like with music and with writing, it could turn people away from a lot of alternatives.
Do you think that's like the main purpose of it, or do you think that's the need it fulfills mostly? Purpose. It's like, yeah, I definitely agree that that's a purpose, but yeah. Do you think that there's more to it? Like, why is it the case that we choose to do it in a creative way?
I don't know.
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
It's something I always like to think about. Tyler, you had something you were going to say?
I mean, and it's this might come to a surprise to some people, but I know all three of us obviously we're Christians, and I think that reflects in our music. But the youth pastor in me, because that's what I do as well, mm-hmm. Just wants to answer that question in kind of a weirdly simple way, and it's simply to bring honor and glorify God and the gifts that He's given to us. If that makes any sense at all, I'm sure it does. But I know for me, drumming was something that I picked up really fast, and every time I look back, I always go, well, that doesn't make sense that it worked out that fast, but that's just the way I'm created, which is fantastic. So, I mean, for me, if we want to get deeply philosophical, I think it's to honor God with the gifts that He's given us, whereas at the same time to reach out to hurting people using those gifts as well, if that makes sense.
So why that specifically? I'm not trying to be difficult.
No,
but why that specifically? Why creative acts?
Man,
this is something I think about a lot. Yeah. So it's out like
no, you're good.
it's a question I can't answer fully, or at least like when I've got similar answers. I would say that it's connected to God, right? But at the same time, I can't get to the heart of it, you know.
Yeah.
But everybody brings a different perspective. Lou, you have anything? Lou's awfully quiet.
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet generally.
He's on Facebook.
No, I've been just sitting here listening.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
No, for me, it's I don't know. I'm very in the similar boat with Tyler that it is to glorify God. Like I said, our music, we write it, and it does affect people. And I feel like it's kind of similar to Jake as well. Like it does affect people in it's a healthy way to get those negative emotions out, but at the same time, it's a good way to reach people, to uplift people. Like it's because I'm just using what other people have said. Like Tyler said, like someone can write a beautiful sonata, and it doesn't matter who you are, it's still beautiful. With this, music it can bring all sorts of people from all different walks of life together in an area, and so I really think that that's kind of like a big thing about it, is that it can like transcend those divides that we have, especially in today's age where everyone's divided. If someone says something a little off, people can get upset about it, where music can kind of transcend that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm not going to say I think that's the whole part of it, but I like where you're going with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to let you go, but before you go, is there anything that you guys so I'm going to let you guys have the last word. Is there anything you'd like to say that connects to creativity, or anything that connects to being a musician or trying to be a musician or going after something creative, anything like that you think that would be good for any creative people to know? Or anybody in general, actually.
Honestly, just follow your passions. Like you said, like just go out and do it. As long as you start somewhere and you're willing to push forward, just do it. It's an incredible thing to create or to pursue something, because you will constantly learn, you'll constantly grow in that way, and then you can look back and be like, look how far I've come, and you can be proud of something. You can be proud of that.
Don't let anybody tell you that your passion's not worth it, because they don't know who you are.
Father Jacob, I think that it's appropriate if you have the last word.
It's like, just find what your motivation is to keep going. It's so important, whether it's money or to express yourself or to become the best. Having your motivation set in line is what fuels the entire process.
If you enjoy this podcast and would like to support me more, what I would ask you to do is that you go to iTunes and you leave a 5-star review. That is something that really, really helps me and helps push the podcast out to different people. And it's something that doesn't cost you much time at all. So if you would do that, I would really appreciate that. And I definitely appreciate everyone who listens to this podcast. If you ever listen to this podcast and you have questions or you have topics you would like me to cover, you can send those to me and I'll look them over and I'll see which ones I think I can cover intelligently. And if you just want to reach out for anything at all, you can do that as well. Thanks for your time. My name is Daniel Poppy, and as always, this is How to Write Good.